There's no reason every small business in Wisconsin, every nonprofit doesn't use this from our point of view. If anyone's having problems with, cell phone dead spots, just turn this on. You don't have to buy anything. Like if they go to our website, you can just have it. Just all it needs is internet and power. That's it. It's plug and play. We ask if we give it to you, just please use it. That's all we ask.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Startup Wisconsin podcast, a show where you can learn about Wisconsin's growing tech scene through stories of startups, founders, investors, and the talented people making it all happen. My guest today is Russ from Co-Founder of WayFi Wireless. They help businesses and nonprofits fix their cellular dead zones using Wi-Fi, and the carriers even pay for it, so the organizations don't have to spend a dime. Russ spent years at Verizon Wireless, flying around the world, setting up data centers and infrastructure, and that's where he noticed a problem that's still true today. There are places where cell phones just don't work. You know where they are. And the traditional fix costs $100,000 or more. And it turns out there's a technology called PassPoint that's been around for over a decade, but hardly anyone really knew it existed. And the numbers tell the story of how far they've come. Over 1,200 locations worldwide, more than 10,000 Wi-Fi radios running, and 258 carriers across multiple continents. They recently just won the award for Best Open Roaming Deployment in the world for 2025, even beating out Cisco and other large competitors. And they did it as a bootstrapped, profitable company after pivoting away from the original VC-backed model. We talk about why he started putting up cellular radios on rooftops in Madison and Milwaukee before shifting to Wi-Fi, what it was like raising $2 million from telecom VCs outside of Wisconsin, and why he's now giving away free equipment to small businesses through their Coverage Across America program. All right, folks, let's get into it. So you spent years, as a executive or principal engineer within companies like Verizon or US Cellular. So what was the thing that kind of happened where you're like, you know what, I want to kind of transition out of like the corporate enterprise stuff and become like a tech founder? Or what was that process like for you?
Yeah. So what helped with that? So I got into, kind of stepping back even before that. So I went to UW-Madison for computer engineering. And then I jumped right into the telecom industry at Verizon Wireless. And at that time, they were transitioning from copper to fiber and from 3G to 4G and towards the end over to 5G. And basically, I just wanted to know how everything worked. How does a cell phone work? How does it connect? How does that data get there? And, that kind of came from my computer engineering degree background, knowing how the computer systems work on a very deep level. And it was just natural curiosity that kind of blossomed into something else. And ended up, at the very end with Verizon, flying all over the world, going to data centers in multiple countries and helping stand up equipment and infrastructure, all here from the Midwest, from, we'll say, from, little tech Wisconsin here. Yeah. And a lot of that was, I always had a little bit of, that little bit of entrepreneurial fire, but going into it, like I never did it in, formal incubator boot camp coming out of UW-Madison. They have a lot more resources than they had back when I graduated. So, and I graduated during a very tough time during 2008. So it was I had to kind of claw my way up through the tech world. And what I did starting out was actually volunteering my time, helping other, mostly students and first-time entrepreneurs. I donated a lot of my time. I started out in Milwaukee, so I was living in Milwaukee at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was just really spending a lot of time around Third Ward and offering my time as a mentor and helping really a lot of first-time and new entrepreneurs take their idea and say, okay, let's take something raw and see, is this a business? And from there, did that with a couple different programs, enjoyed my time there, and that ended up, turning into other various opportunities as well. After I did that for a bit, I kind of blossomed more into working with first-time founders more directly and mentoring them one-on-one, helping them if they need to fundraise for their company and get off the ground. And that was all locally here, mostly in Milwaukee, but also in Madison as well. And my focus was really interesting because my background was hard tech, like it was telecom and then a bit of cybersecurity as well. So that's what kind of brought me to it. So during this whole time, I was like, I kind of got an itch to scratch. I want to start my own thing as well. What should that be? And for a while I thought, well, maybe it's, being like an ISP or doing some type of tech company. It took a while to refine that idea down and really, I was in no rush to do it. And a lot of the time I spent was finding the right co-founders because you need all the help you can get, and it's hard to find good people. So very luck, through, a lot of luck of just staying persistent and open-minded and meeting people. I went to a lot of meetups. I did a lot of public speaking. I naturally started to run into other people who had eventually, I found people had similar interests to mine. Some of them I found in person, some of them I found virtually from just events. And there's so many ways to connect these days across the way too many Discord channels and Signal and everything else that's out there. Eventually met some really cool people and said, hey, we've got an idea here to put something together that I think is really special, that solves a real problem that business and nonprofits have. Even today, and I saw this back when I was working at Verizon, there are areas even today, cell phones just don't work. Like southwestern Wisconsin, if you're a Big Blue customer, you're gonna have trouble getting a signal in most cities, and that's a big issue for tourism. And also it's helping nonprofits like job training centers, schools who just they don't have the money to spend, 80, 100 grand or more on repeaters or what's called DAS systems, basically allowing the signal to go through their building. So we're there's got to be a better way, and found out, hey, Wi-Fi is the answer. And from there, from my background working with carriers, it got to be very easy. So that, that's, kind of the story and the journey of how I went from working a big corporate tech job to working with a great group of co-founders and putting together a Wisconsin-based technology company that solves problems, and then started getting some really exciting clients after that. And from there, it's just been exploding. The clients we have now are just completely incredible from where we started.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm actually curious around what was the moment that you really realized that this could be a company, and actually bring it to life versus hey, this is an interesting technology. How do I apply this within the corporation I'm already existing in? Versus, hey, I'm going to take this out as an entrepreneur and because it sounds like there's just a lot of infrastructure and things like that. But it sounds like, because it's so hardware related. That's why I was kind of curious, what were the steps that you kind of took, or the moments and the steps, I guess, where it was hey, I'm actually going to do this thing, I guess.
Yeah. So a lot of it was putting together the team, validating technology that it works, testing it out, working with different carriers there, and reading the history of this technology. This technology has been around for a decade, and hardly anyone even knows it exists or pays any attention to it. And we're like, why is that? What was the history of it? We found, back a decade ago, Wi-Fi wasn't nearly as good as it was today. Not as many carriers were participating in it that there are now. Now, all the big top 3 carriers are using this technology, so that makes it easy. And also the support amongst the different Wi-Fi vendors, pretty poor a decade ago, where now it's pretty much every major OEM in the industry that's enterprise grade or ISP grade supports it natively. So there was a lot of things came together that said, okay, this is the right time for it. It's just we need to do the hard work of really evangelizing this technology. And we tried a lot of different things to evangelize it. We spent money on webinars, on outreach, on email lists, going to events, industry events that are out there. And before we finally kind of cracked it, and we're okay, now we figured out, where are people going to find out about this and start using this? And a big question in the beginning was, who is the ideal customer who needs better Wi-Fi, better cellular signal over Wi-Fi using this technology? We're well, it's kind of everyone. I mean, who doesn't want perfect signal? And the beauty of this is that the carriers pay for it. So you can do this at no cost to the actual organization that needs it, which is really amazing. We're why hasn't this been done already? And looking at the industry incumbents like Boingo, which is over at runs the Milwaukee airport Wi-Fi. So you're oh, okay. So they charge a lot of fees, and it's expensive and slow, and they work with very large, clients. That's how it works there. But their cost structure is so high, it doesn't really scale down market. We're oh, so when we go to now what they would consider small would be, I would consider a Fortune 500 company, but they only work with the biggest of the big. Everybody else is kind of out there to figure it out. And if an organization wants to do this on their own, they got to find somebody who knows the industry and has the patience to spend 2 years negotiating a contract with each of the carriers. And we're okay, that's why it's stalled. That's why it's at where it's at. What is kind of the secret to put this all together? So got extremely engaged with the industry itself. So the Wireless Broadband Alliance, or called WBA for short, runs all the technical standards for this technology and is kind of the bridge between the major carriers all over the world So the carriers we all know and love, and the actual kind of organizations and manufacturers that are producing the equipment and the companies who actually want to use this service kind of working together. So it's kind of, that's the industry group. And understanding that, that to me made, because I came from telecom industry, I'm like, this makes complete sense to me how this all works and why we're at where we're at, but why isn't everyone using this? So we're like, okay, that's what's missing. We've got a product market fit. We've got the technology. We have now, it's matured to the point where it's very easy to use since they've pushed out what they call carrier profiles on cell phones. So now phones, they basically, when they see an SSID, the SSID actually says, stuff like, hey, I'm carrier A, carrier B, carrier C. They actually see it right through the air, kind of roughly like a cell site does, but doing it over Wi-Fi. So we're like, oh, okay, so that's how it works. So now it's automatic, it's seamless. There's no pop-ups, there's no ads. It's the industry group kind of made sure it was a clean experience. They didn't want this to turn into another way to force ads on people to get connectivity. So that's where okay, that puts together after, the technology made complete sense, the market made sense, it was putting together the team. So put together, someone from the ISP industry who knew a lot about how this works, a wide background. I had a background in technology and some background in sales as well. So that worked out there. Then the core, really getting down to what the CTO would handle, core infrastructure, the servers, and putting together dashboards as well. So saying, all right, when somebody onboards with us, they need a dashboard, they need to see metrics, they need to be able to manage these networks themselves and onboard themselves, make that very easy. And we looked at what other people had tried in the past, and we saw they just stopped innovating 5 years ago. And they said, this is good enough, and we're not going to innovate anymore. It's good enough. And we talked to people who work with them. They'd all have the same complaints. So it looks like they haven't innovated the interface. It looks like something from a decade ago or 20 years ago. With a lot of them, there's fees and they're slow and everything's expensive. There's fees for every access point. There's training fees. There's other fees. We're sick of fees, and we just want somebody who's easy to work with. Also, we want somebody we can pick up the phone and talk to. We don't want to deal with Google level support where you send an email and you hear something back weeks or months later. But when you run a business, that isn't really, you need a higher level of service and support. So that really is what allowed us to put together an MVP that worked really well. And we did a little experimentation. It was we went straight there, like a lot of startups. You had to start out and experiment a little bit. So we started out doing something, before we focused on really providing the service over Wi-Fi. We were actually putting up cellular radios all across the country. So including Madison and Milwaukee, we put up, big clusters. We spent, a lot of money putting up radios and selling those to the carriers. And that was a lot of work. That's really what got us started, is building that network with local partners throughout the country, but here in Wisconsin as well. So Wisconsin was kind of a hotbed of what they called CBRS cellular technology. So cell phones, people were driving to downtown Milwaukee and jumping on these cell sites and didn't even know that it was running on, something, me and the other co-founders had put up. So we had a lot of fun doing that, but that was complex because you have to do FCC registration. With those, obviously you have to have reliable backhaul. You got to have a lot of site maintenance. And also those radios, while they were, expensive and complex for maybe somebody newer to the industry, they weren't, nearly as powerful as what you see on the big cell sites that are out there. Like when I worked at Verizon Wireless, we used, extremely expensive Ericsson radios. Those would easily cost over $100,000. Where, since then the industry's gotten a lot more competitive. And the standards have opened up to where anyone can put up, a 4G radio over CBRS. So that's the citizens band radio spectrum. And once you get through the registration and of course the fees for that, to get that up and running, you have to go through a certification process to make sure you're allowed to put those up. After that, it was really, working with carriers say, is this what you want? And they kind of experimented with it. They said it was kind of nice, but long term, we thought, man, let's just stick with doing cellular over Wi-Fi. And that's kind of a very high level generic term for it. The actual term for the technology is called PassPoint. And it allows you to work with the big carriers we all know and love and have their phones automatically jump on. And it turned out that solved a lot of issues coming up, because we found that pretty much everybody complains about cellular coverage in their business, especially traveling. Why don't, we're now talking about, 5G now. And now, thanks to Starlink, we've got satellite coverage coming in that's, all over the place. It might be low bandwidth, but at least it's available everywhere as long as you've got a fairly clear view of the sky. And we just found like, well, that doesn't help somebody at a restaurant, that's deep below ground level that can't get any signal. But we can put Wi-Fi up there quickly, affordably, reliably, with the amount of quality that the carriers want, because that's what they care about. They want to reduce churn. That's why they're paying for all this type of integration work to be done. And they'll work with like the biggest partners. So, they'll work with, like the federal government and the military. But asking them, hey, can you work at, maybe work at the local Chick-fil-A? They might not. They might be like, that's too much work for us. So that's where they work with partners. That's where we came in. Like, we know the language, we know the culture, we know the technology. This is something easy to set up. It's more of evangelizing how this works here. And it's pretty amazing now that we've grown from very, very small, humble beginnings to now 1,200 locations all over the world, over 10,000 Wi-Fi radios up and running every day, a tremendous amount of traffic. We see our traffic frequently doubling. And, not only working with a lot of well-known institutions here in Wisconsin, like Dane County Airport has been a very long client to help improve connectivity for travelers. So if somebody travels through the Dane County Airport, they're likely using this. They're jumping on the Wi-Fi without even knowing it. And it's nice because it shows like the carrier name there. So like, oh, that's me. Okay. That's, that looks safe. But you might be going to a museum. You might be going to a children's museum. You might be going to a job training center. And we power all that. Also, we're starting to get more and more corporate headquarters coming in and saying, I want this for our bank or our credit union and also for all of our branch offices. We're seeing more and more of that coming in because they're like, well, I can turn this on and it's going to cost me very little. There's just some operational cost in getting it set up, but that's a heck of a lot cheaper than spending $100,000 just for one building, just to get started. Yeah. And then if they have dozens of branch offices, they're like, oh, the costs just explode. That's really kind of amazing that it just works and it's automatic. So we spend a lot of time, educating and evangelizing it. That's out there. And we're very lucky to have, carriers that are pushing this and are paying us to say, yeah, help me get this up and running. So they're, for commercial locations, there can be a revenue stream that's attached to it that makes sense. But, most of the time people are like, I just want my phone to work. That's all I care about. All this other stuff about standards and tech and carriers I don't really care about. That's just details. At the end of the day, I just want my cell phone to work. That was a big focus for ours too, that differentiated us from a lot of other people in the industry. From the beginning, we said we want to work with everybody, even the carriers who didn't want to pay us in the beginning. We said, we'll still help you fix your network and make your customers happy. But down the road, we're going to negotiate with you. And that worked out very well. And that's how, today we're at 258 carriers all over the world. It's not just the US. It's not just North America, South America. It's a lot of countries overseas in Europe and Asia that participate in this. And that's actually what led to us getting a recent industry award just for that work of saying, we're just trying to get better connectivity.
Yeah. What is it about this approach that carriers are willing to pay for? Is it because their quality of service is better? Like, a customer has a clear connection more often and that keeps them as a customer on contract? Is that why they're willing to pay for the connectivity like this?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because every carrier, even though it's the same technology, has a different use for it. The larger carriers tend to do it to reduce churn. And when the phones connect to these Wi-Fi SSIDs that we help people set up on their own hardware, and they don't have to install anything, there's no license. It's very straightforward to set it up on like Meraki or Aruba, or Ubiquity if they're a smaller medium business. For the carrier's benefit is churn. They're trying to have a high quality, seamless experience for their customers without losing them to the other carriers. So they'd say, well, even though I might have to pay for this, it's better off to pay for something decent than have a slow and frustrated customer. So that's how most of them view it. Some of them are a little more commercial focused. They're like, well, I just want this for like my highest paying enterprise customers. We see that sometimes. And others are strictly cost savings. We see that a lot with international carriers in the US to where, hey, I can pay, one of the domestic carriers, twice as much, or I can pay you half. And that saves me money as long as the experience is a good one, meaning the speed is acceptable, the latency is acceptable, the service characteristics work out. and we feed those live. So while the cell phones connect, we can't see any of the data. We have no idea who it is. It's all anonymized, but we do report like what's the signal strength, what's quality metrics around the connection, and that's what they use in real time. Because really, when these phones connect, like the carrier knows how's the phone doing, what's the signal strength, where is it at, and in most cases where we see a lot of connections coming in, it's where the phones are like, this is a dead zone. I'm in either a metal glass building underground, or I'm in a rural area that is very poor coverage on my carrier.
Yeah,
and this is a way better experience.
Yeah. How does Wi-Fi work in a rural setting? Is it they're just different types of towers that you're installing? Like how does that work? Because obviously, like if you're in a building, there's a Wi-Fi network that's pre-existing that you're able to leverage. It sounds like, but in a rural setting, how does that work? How is that different?
Yeah, I mean, we do both indoor and outdoor Wi-Fi. It's the same thing for rural areas. It's just most of the time we're just adding another SSID to their existing Wi-Fi. So it's called a Hotspot 2.0 or PassPoint are the two terms for it. It's the same technology underneath. So for rural areas, there's you can do more outdoor coverage, and that makes sense. Like talking to people in rural towns in Wisconsin for tourism is very important. Sometimes it's even for government buildings. Just people like can't use their phone indoors, and they're like, well, this fixes that issue quickly and affordably to get that done versus buying a dedicated set of equipment that's out there, which is probably the most extreme way you could go, but it's also the most expensive way you could go. What we found a lot, especially with schools, so a lot of schools use a carrier called FirstNet that came out during COVID. They gave out like hotspots so they could have either free or extremely affordable service. You also see this with emergency services, so police and fire use FirstNet, and that's a carrier that we've supported since the beginning. So now they're like, wow, all of our hotspots work, and if they don't work, we can either put up an access point or find a way to help us so they have better connectivity. So that's been a part of it, and that's the beauty of what we do is that you can install new Wi-Fi APs, and we have a recommended list of vendors and partners that we work with. But often your existing equipment, as long as it's recent, which is usually in the last 5 years, it's perfectly usable. There's no reason to buy anything.
Yeah. I want to go into how these Wi-Fi networks can be a revenue stream for like a business, a school, or a nonprofit. Like, how does that work? I don't understand. Like, is it selling data? Like what's happening there? Like what?
Yeah. So it depends on who it is too, like, because how much you charge has an effect on how much traffic you get. So that's why we usually say it's better for commercial entities. Say, hey, if you charge for this traffic, you are going to get a lower acceptance rate, meaning the phones that are attending, they're going to put more scrutiny on it. It's not going to be everybody. They're never going to let everybody jump on. You charge them for it. But we also have direct contracts with carriers as well, to where, hey, if we don't charge you, can you get us like pretty much at 100% acceptance? And they're like, yeah, we can do that. So that's really nice too. So that's better for like schools and nonprofits, government, to really help them out, because they want it to work for everybody, and they're not interested in the revenue. We see it a lot too with a lot of enterprise clients as well. Like they don't care. Like even if we gave them the revenue, it's like one missed text message or one missed phone call could be worth what they'd make in a month. So that could be tens of thousands right there. Just an executive not able to have connectivity, or 30, 40 employees who they can't reliably get a hold of outside of their laptop and their phone messenger, assuming they're on Wi-Fi here, but they want text messages to work, they want phone calls to work more reliably than they are currently. So that's where it comes in. So the monetization comes in for the data. So basically it's performance based. As long as it's a high quality connection, based on the amount of data, of course, they audit that and they go through a quality process. And then they do pay out monthly. And with commercial partners, we do pay them. We then share that revenue with them if it makes sense. It's a very large install. So we see that a lot with franchisees. We see it a lot with like fast food, restaurants, entertainment venues. It makes a lot of sense there. Bars, restaurants that are busy. You have a lot of people who are sitting for a long time, or typically on their phone for an extended amount of time, like a bus stop. Could make sense as well if they want to monetize it or nearby. But a lot of restaurants, a lot of hotels, motels too, because people are usually at, when they're coming back from, an event for business travel, they're hitting their phones pretty hard. And we see a lot from hotels and motels as well. Malls is another big one. Malls, a lot of traffic from them. And it makes sense because when people have better connectivity on their phone, what we've seen in a couple studies is that they tend to spend more time on their phone when it's more reliable and they have faster speeds. And what we see is if you're a business owner, that's good because that usually means wherever they're at, they're going to be there longer. Means so for like restaurants, it typically means they're going to order maybe just one more item. They just order one more drink. What is that worth to you? Even if it's only, 1 out of every 10, how much would that increase your revenue? So that makes it for them a really easy set of calculus to make, especially when there's no upfront equipment cost. And our engineers will jump on a call or even fly in if they need to configure it, which is typically anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes to get this configured on existing equipment. Because you don't have to install anything, you don't have to pay any fees, there's no licensing needed. So it's more of just walking them through, getting them on our servers, getting their user account set up, and then teaching them, hey, here's your dashboard. Here's where you see the traffic and the metrics and how you're doing over time. Here's how you add more locations to light this up, or if you do a refresh of new equipment, here's how you onboard that equipment. And that's pretty easy. So yeah, this has been a big boost for, quite a few different industries. But what we really try to focus on is supporting the most carriers that are out there. So right now we're at 258 and making it so that this works with everybody as much as possible all over the world. We focus on that first, and then monetizing is kind of second for clients who see that revenue stream as being lucrative and offsetting some of the costs of equipment. We see that now for upgrades with some clients. They're using this to just, hey, now our Wi-Fi equipment kind of pays for itself. And we're like, well, that's fantastic. So when they do a refresh every 3 to 5 years, now that's not a cost center anymore. It's either neutral or it's actually a revenue driver, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I never thought about it from like, hey, if there's better connection, if they're actually able to call or text that friend to show up for that dinner gathering or whatever, hey, I'm hanging out, having a beer, come join me. Like, I never thought about the revenue generation that way. My thought was like, here's the data, here's the data we can sell to this firm or that firm or for advertising use and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like the real world impact of revenue is interesting. Never really thought about it that way. Interesting. Today's episode is brought to you by Headway, a digital product agency based in Wisconsin. Do you need to design and build a world-class user experience for your software, but feeling like you just can't get there on your own? That's where Headway comes in. We're the folks who help ambitious startups and enterprise teams bring their product ideas to life through design, development, and product strategy. We don't just give you user interface designs and leave you to figure out the rest. We work with you and your target customers to create beautiful user experiences, build scalable design systems, and provide Silicon Valley level talent to get it done right the first time. Whether you're launching a new software or just looking to add features, we've got your back. We've worked with startups in industries like logistics, healthcare, fintech, and edtech, helping them solve their biggest software challenges. And here's the thing, no matter how complex your product is, we can help you gain clarity and get the job done together. We're so confident that we'll be the right fit that we offer a 50% money back guarantee if you don't think we're working out within the first 45 days. Ready to see how we can help you and your team? Just head over to headway.io and book a free consultation today. I do want to talk about blockchain because blockchain is a topic I still feel like I'm learning a lot about. And how does it apply to what you're doing? Maybe give an example of maybe how it's worked or it's working at the Dane County Airport and how it applies there.
Yeah. So what we've found is that there's been a tremendous amount of innovation in the sector. So the WBA that I mentioned earlier, we've been helping a lot of companies join them and kind of participate in this ecosystem of Wi-Fi connectivity, working with cellular carriers. So what that allowed us to do is we found that there were a couple new startups in the space who started aggressively using this technology. And since the carriers, we still have to use this secure standard with them. That's really nice because now we have a shared secure link with them. What they've done is allowed blockchain to really accelerate kind of payments and the efficiency of this even further than most people thought was even possible. So now when someone connects to one of these access points and it goes through one of these, we'll say these marketplaces that pay typically higher rates for a select amount of carriers. So they usually don't support anywhere near more than like 5, 7, 8 carriers. But for what they do support, sometimes for commercial clients, they can pay significantly more. So it makes a lot of sense. And they also pay very quickly, very affordably. So typically the industry cash payments are very slow. There's a long audit process. The blockchain technology drastically sped that up and made that a lot easier. There are companies that sell like their own kind of expensive Wi-Fi you can buy and just put anywhere that you want, where we've really focused on kind of working with professional businesses one-on-one and kind of helping them hold their hand, work with their technical people and giving them that strong technical support to say, you control everything, you run everything, just plug us in, comes in. So blockchain has come in to really kind of accelerate really the payment space in that area, which I think is a huge opportunity for a lot of businesses who understand it and are comfortable with that technology that's out there. So that really accelerated the growth of the industry. And we've been a partner with several of those startups in the space. And we also did consulting with several of them to help them grow that, because we built our complete technology stack from the bottom up. All the technology we use, we built ourselves. So a lot of them come in and don't have a background in the space that might be as deep and as hands-on. They might be a newer startup coming in. So we help a lot of them grow. And I'm really happy to work with them. That's kind of the other part is like we're a fast growing small company ourselves, but we're now helping this ecosystem of other startups that work with us. And we want to help them grow too. Like some of them that we work with are in other parts of the country. Sometimes they're in other countries, and we're helping them drastically grow very quickly and say, okay, this is how it works. Work with us. We'll kind of unlock it, because even they deal with the tough part that anyone deals with. Like negotiating with carriers is very, very tough. You have to be patient. It takes a long time. We're like, work with us. We'll get you an agreement right away. We'll get you up and running right away. And then if you want it, and we're also very easy to work with, if they want to go get a direct contract with a carrier and work with that for that carrier, that's fine. We don't do exclusivity. We try to lock people in. We're very easy to work with. So that's us kind of giving back to the industry at our new bit. I think that's really why we're seeing a lot of industry recognition, because we've been giving back a lot to the standards bodies. And recently, we got the award for the best open roaming deployment in the world for 2025.
Yeah. So, congrats, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. We're up against some strict, we're up against like Cisco and the real big guys.
Wow.
And we're able to beat, humongous, well-known companies out there and get an industry award. And I think what it really came down to is just that we're easy to work with, and we focused on, like I said, it's not just about, the revenue that comes in from it. It's about the experience for the customer. That should be your guiding light. Everything else comes from a good experience. If that's not driving what you're doing, if you're just doing this just for the money, that will only take you so far. You need to have the most support. You need to be the easiest to work with. You need to have good tech support. We also have, we've published over 200, combination of videos and shorts on YouTube that show people how to configure this technology, even if they don't work with us. We've published technical guides on our website on how to configure this, even if you don't work with us. So, and we're the only ones in the industry who do that. You go to anyone else, like the Wingo, like good luck, they won't even pick up the phone.
It's like gatekeeping. Yeah.
There's a lot of gatekeeping in the telecom industry. So we've just been coming in and just knocking down doors. And of course, the industry loves that. The industry standards bodies love that, because we're taking a support load off of them, because normally it falls on them.
Yeah.
A lot of companies, especially startups, asking them, how does this work? How do I configure this? And they get stuff from, schools too, and educational institutions, colleges. Like, I just want to get this up and running. And I'm just so confused. I don't understand the terminology or how this works. So we do video guides, we do written guides. And so like, here's exactly how it works. You could work with anyone in the industry. You can work with us as well, but we're going to require it. We bring that down. So that's really, came up, and we're starting to get, we got our first big industry award for open roaming, which is an international roaming standard that works with the carriers. So part of that 258 was a big part of us supporting that open roaming, which is another part of PassPoint Hotspot 2.0 that we support. And you pretty much don't get that much revenue from that, but you work with so many more carriers, and it's such a better experience. That's why we support it.
Yeah. What I love about part of your story is that, and I think this happens, there's a pattern of this happening that I've seen as I've talked with entrepreneurs, especially in Wisconsin or in the Midwest. And I wish it happened more often. And I don't know how to make that happen, but I love that you're a person that worked in a specific industry and got a lot of experience and knowledge and understood some of the things that were going on. So there's two things. Like one, you saw a problem and an opportunity. You're like, oh, why is no one doing this? This is interesting. And then also you kind of like had the tenacity to say, hey, I'm going to give it a shot. And then the other part of it was you kind of had the knowledge and expertise to develop the right partnerships to actually execute on it because you were in the industry. And like you were saying, like, hey, it's really hard to get these partnerships to happen, these contracts to happen with telecom companies. But because you've been in it, it was a little bit easier for you because you knew who to talk to, how to talk about it, what was valuable to them, and then how it actually could turn into a business model. So that's super fascinating. So props to you for figuring that out, because a lot of people that get into entrepreneurship, there's some kind of barrier they hit because maybe they didn't work in a certain industry, but they're like, oh, why doesn't this exist? I should do it. But they never worked in the industry or something. Or they think that what they do in their industry, they can apply to another one. And it's uphill battle the whole time because they don't have the right partnerships and the distribution to do it. So that's just an observation. Do you have any thoughts on like how maybe someone that is listening that works in a corporate, like you did, what would you tell them if they're maybe they're in the shoes that you were in at the time where you're like, hey, I see this thing, I see an opportunity, but no one's doing it. Like, what would you tell them if you were back in those shoes again?
Yeah. So from big corporate life, like Verizon's a humongous company, over 100,000 employees, international as well. I would say like stay curious and don't get depressed or down that like other coworkers aren't like that. Most people don't have the bug of wanting to risk everything or a lot to try something new. Most people don't have that. They want to be safe and secure, have something that's reliable and normal. So I'd say like your coworkers likely at most big companies are going to have zero interest in your entrepreneur kind of ambitions. You've got to have that drive within you to stay curious and stay open and put a lot of time and energy while you've got it into networking, meeting people, Googling, watching, hours and hours, hundreds of hours of YouTube videos, Googling now. I mean, I didn't have AI back then. It would have helped me a lot if I would have had GPT and
summarizing learnings. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It would have gotten some stuff wrong, but it would have started me going from zero to something. It'd be a start. Sure. Like, who's the standards body? Who are they working with? It would have gotten it right enough to send me in the right direction.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what I usually say is like, stay curious. And we've heard this, many times. People overestimate how much they can accomplish in a year, but drastically underestimate how much they can accomplish over 5 to 10. Slow, steady, continuous effort really pays off. Patience is a big thing. So I used to be a big fisherman growing up, especially middle school and high school. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, up in the Crivets area.
Oh, nice. I'm from Menominee, Michigan originally. So
yeah. I came off the High Falls flowage. So fishing every day was very normal because there's water everywhere. Or that was just very, fishing, hunting, snowmobiling. It's just a part of life. Even going out mudding, it's a big part of the culture outside of there. Although since I went to college, I've been in Milwaukee and Madison pretty much the whole time. The big, what we used to call the big cities of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like now you're a city slicker. You're not driving a Ford, a Ford or a Chevy, maybe a Jeep.
Sure.
That was pretty much pick your, in high school, pick your side, Ford or Chevy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's everything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a Dodge, all right. But so this was in, so that'd be my biggest piece of advice is be patient and just keep at it. And there, you will find communities that are into love the way the internet has grown over the last 30 years. You will find people who have your interest eventually if you just keep plugging at it. And if you get stuck, noodle on it for a bit and move on. I mean, this was not my first idea. This has not been my first startup. This was not the first, business I thought I had. I thought I think my very first idea was like a computer repair shop, basically, like mobile computer repair. I thought that
interesting,
cool idea. And that went nowhere, for many different reasons. But in middle school, I worked at a computer repair shop. So to me, this made sense. I was like, oh yeah, I used to run a little branch office for a little ISP. This seemed easy, low startup costs. It's really knowledge based, things like that. And I said, even before going on to Wi-Fi technology, we did it the really hard way with cellular radios. I mean, I was up there on the roof with like the old, it's funny, the old cell sites I worked with when I worked at Verizon Wireless, I was on those same sites on the same rooftop, putting up, my little radio next to their big radios and build them for using it. I was like, this is crazy. It all kind of comes around in ways you don't expect. So patience, pays off, and just continuous effort, focus. And the startup community here is very helpful. Even though they may not be experts in exactly what you're doing, the essential skills that you need to have around bookkeeping, accounting, marketing, advertising, positioning, budgeting, and really helping you, the biggest thing when I was starting is how to communicate what we're doing. We did so many horrible pitches when we started. People had no idea what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So they're like, what are you doing? And we're like, oh, we're putting radios on rooftops. Like, are you allowed to do that? Yeah, we register with the FCC. You're like, but why would carriers do it? Well, because it saves them money. But don't they have their own towers? Yeah, they do. So you got to take them on this journey. You're like, no, there's a specific niche where it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Let's try, and trying this out. And, big companies experiment too on new things, and sometimes work with partners to kind of, flesh that model out. And now what tends to happen, is like you have some level of success and then you end up never really leaving the community, just being active in your own way. We've had so many examples of incredible businesses started in Wisconsin, and now a lot of them give back as angel investors or, join different investment groups here in Wisconsin. Help the next generation kind of rise up. There's lots of boot camps. We've been invited to participate in them. But, if we kind of speed ran through it because we're like, hey, we've already got the customer. We already know who the clients are. We already got our pitch. It's really now at this point, finding the right kind of partnerships to scale up.
Yeah.
And dealing with those challenges, going from MVP to scaling up, seeing how far you can scale up and how quickly you can grow. And, really at that point, like, what do you need to kind of hit those types of metrics and goals to grow the business to the point where, it's something that people are like, oh, that was a Wisconsin startup? That's incredible. I had no idea.
Yeah. I actually want to talk about two things. Is the first one is about just funding, and then the other one would be about how you scaled. So with the funding, because it sounds like you've had an entrepreneurial experience for a while. But with WayFi, like, how did you go about getting funding to actually execute and build those first towers, those little smaller units that you installed and stuff like that? Like, what was that experience like?
So when we first started in the very beginning with that, we did kind of a traditional startup. So back then we also had a different name. We changed it to WayFi just to kind of go along with our Wi-Fi shift for this. So it was very traditional startup, did a seed round, raised $2 million, went through, and proved the concept. And that was more of a traditional kind of startup where you're doing some early fundraising and you're kind of racing to go, racing through your series and then maybe an IPO or acquisition down the road. That's where it started. But with that, after we went through kind of cellular radios, we actually reinvented the complete business. And now none of that applies at all. None of those earlier investors are no longer a part of it now. Now we're 100% private and self-funded. We're bootstrapped, raw and profitable, you could say, on the inside. So our cash flows, our funding, we're internally held right now. We don't have any debt.
That's amazing.
And we all the founders and employees are just paid off of what we earn from what the carriers pay.
Yeah. The first funding that you did get though, through that experimental phase, where did you get it from? Like, who did you get it from?
Those were for, we'll say, niche telecom VCs.
Okay, interesting. Okay, they weren't located in Wisconsin.
No.
Yeah.
We actually met with quite a few investors in Wisconsin. The ones who actually had the most interest were unfortunately from Minneapolis.
Okay.
We did talk to many potential investors in Wisconsin and continue to stay friendly with them. But we actually found that it was much easier to raise from the traditional centers, New York, West Coast and East Coast investors were much easier to raise from.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now I want to go into the scaling part because it sounds like your trajectory has been pretty incredible and your team size has grown quite a bit. Talk about that. Like, it sounds like you've kind of been in this type of world for a while and understand like what it takes to do that. And you have a co-founder, I believe, in Tucson, right?
We've got a couple of co-founders. The core team is a set of co-founders. Yep. And then after that, we basically, and this is mostly on the sales force. Then that's mostly a set of commission-based reps who then are form most of the other team. And then for one-off installations and things like that, we have a variety of external partners we contract with. Like they're like, hey, we want to refresh all of our equipment. Then you go ahead and we contract with them.
Okay. So like full-time employees, like what does that look like right now versus contractors and stuff?
Yeah, it'd be probably about, as far as employees / co-founders / partners, we're about half a dozen. And then it's about the same amount who are basically, for a better word, commission sales reps.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And then from there, third-party partners, it's about 2 of them, depending on where they're at in the country and the work we need. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So I would imagine based on location, because obviously you're doing installations and integrations in multiple continents, it sounds like. So at that point, you're leveraging contractors and partners in those places, so you don't have to send your team there or do like remote work, so to speak. Because it sounds like they have to be like boots on the ground for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, typically one of the partners will. So we have somebody who's an expert in that type of work. So he'll lead that. He'll be the project lead, and he'll come on site, and it's kind of the field and installation lead, and do that with them and handle that person. And then depending on where it is in the country, like we did a big installation project in New York. That's part of Central Park, and for that we contracted with a local installer because it just made more sense.
Yeah. What has been like the most exciting kind of project or client to get in maybe for personal reasons or maybe for business reasons? I'm kind of curious.
So like the most gratifying one actually didn't make the most money, but it was most gratifying. I would say actually when we first put up cellular radios in downtown Madison, and my cell phone, I had a Verizon cell phone, lit up and started using it. That was the most gratifying, seeing it work and it all come around. That was coming in. That was, kind of the most personally kind of fulfilling moment. You're like, this all works. This is incredible. Like my iPhone just jumped on here and jumped on like it was any other carrier. And I was like, this is incredible. This all actually works. So that was personally gratifying for me. And for some of the partners as well coming in. More recently, what's been gratifying is seeing it kind of take root and spread on its own. Our approach to the industry has been different from most because we aggressively partner with the Wi-Fi manufacturers, and we find that we're trying to help them grow and offer, again, we're all trying to do the same thing, offer incredible value and connectivity to our clients. We should just work together and make it easy. Why are we making it hard or 15, 25 clicks for something that could be 2 clicks? So a lot of that is working with product managers and saying, here's an example of how it works with this manufacturer. Why doesn't everybody else do this too? And that coming in. So lately it's been the incredible, new places we've gotten. So now we have quite a few locations on the Las Vegas Strip. So quite a few well-known casinos have now joined on, which is incredible. I didn't expect us to get that this soon, this quickly, to work with types of partners. We've also had multiple theme parks on both the Universal side and the Disney side now sign up, as well as other theme parks come in. So theme parks on both the West and the East Coast kind of come in. So that has been pretty amazing too. Malls too. So one thing here, most people have been to like the Schaumburg Mall or in Chicago. They've been live by service for quite some time. And I remember when I went there so many times over the years when I worked at Verizon Wireless. They have a big office right there next to the Schaumburg Mall. So I'd be over there regularly for lunch. And now you go in there and you're like, when you see your own service there and everyone walking around, it's just working. You're like, this is kind of crazy. You're like, it's that whole thing back again of like, wow, it all works end to end. And we've got a long way to go too. Like we're big for our niche at this point, but we want to get so much, like there's no reason every small business in Wisconsin, every nonprofit doesn't use this from our point of view. If anyone's having problems with, cell phone dead spots, just turn this on. You don't have to buy anything. And we even started a program. We started with the local Chamber of Commerce. We'll even give the equipment to them at no cost, to a small business. We'll say, we'll give you an AP. Like if they go to our website, we call it the Coverage Across America program. It's not just here in Wisconsin, but this is where we've got the most local partners. We're saying, we'll just give it to you. Like you can just have it. Just all it needs is internet and power. That's it. It's plug and play. So we ask if we give it to you, just please use it. That's all we ask.
Yeah.
Because there's a cost to this hardware. There's a cost to process it, ship it, maintain it, etc. There are hard costs to it, but we will provide it if that's something. And we'd actually like that to be a kit for all small businesses in Wisconsin. We've also talked to some of the both sides of the political parties, so both Republicans and Democrats, and we said, hey, for like events and for voting, we will provide the equipment if you just plug it in for all your events. And we're politically neutral. We're just trying to, again, help people communicate with this. So, and we even flew out to Washington, D.C. We talked to a couple of our, talked to a Wisconsin senator about this and about this initiative. And they were just floored that, number one, we're doing all this and no one ever told them. And number two, like there's this blockchain component to it too. They're like, what? You got to be kidding me. What? You're telling me that you're doing all this stuff with telecom and phones, jumping onto Wi-Fi, fixing coverage issues, and you're not charging people. And then because the carriers are paying you, and then on top of this, you're giving people equipment if they ask for it. Like, yeah, they're like, yep. They're like, so a lot of it has been just kind of getting the word out about that. So that's been, that's kind of been the points where I've been the most fulfilled. But outside of that, day to day, it's working with the team, working with the partners. You gotta, with a startup, like you live and die by your team and the people, especially early employees, and they're just amazing through thick and thin. They're with you, and whatever the problem is, like we've had, like all startups, we've had setbacks, we've had, things happen, partnerships change unexpectedly, or couriers come in with some last minute request, or things, something break, that all that stuff happens, coming into this because you're moving very quickly. And as long as you've got solid people and you really enjoy working together, you can get through just anything. It doesn't matter what it is. You can just get through it. That's coming up. And we're kind of a special brand of that now, being a private, basically bootstrap startup.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just want to say congratulations on all the progress and all the impact that you're making. I love that it's like, again, you're local. To me, you're local in Wisconsin, making a difference, but you're having like this global impact on like, just again, giving people the opportunity to communicate better. Like it's just having connection is important. So what's next? Like what's the, you talked about, hey, you kind of like, we're big for our niche, but we want to keep going. What does that look like to you?
Yeah. So a lot of that has been growing internationally more. So I'm seeing tremendous growth and demand in Mexico, South America. We're seeing we're talking to quite a few European carriers that we think are going to spike up. So we're thinking that immediately the next phase is actually outside of the US, is where most of the growth is going to happen in the long term. In the short term, we got a long way to go in the US. I mean, we've got I just looked at our dashboard here. We've got 10,610 Wi-Fi radios running live right now. I want to see that grow to 1 million. So, and what we're finding is really partnerships, working with really good Wi-Fi manufacturers. Like Alta Labs has been an incredible partner. We actually shared our industry award with them because they couldn't have won it without us. And we couldn't have won it without their help. So we show a real deep commitment to the partners that we work with that lasts through everything that we do. I think that's where we're going is working through more partners. Definitely more reps will be coming in who are focusing. We just recently signed somebody out of Wisconsin who has 25 years of experience just working with organizations in Wisconsin and technology. They're like, you're perfect. And he's in Milwaukee too. And I'm like, oh boy. Because like I've been working on Madison for a couple of years now and we're doing great. I still have a long way to go, but we've got airport franchises, we've got museums, we've got art venues, we've got nonprofits. Like Madison is doing really well. A lot of restaurants, we got bars, we've got, fitness centers, like all live here, all across the Capitol. You can go around the Capitol Square and we just be ping ponging different areas that are lit up with our service, which is kind of cool coming in. Maybe one day, I'm waiting for the day when Washington, D.C. is the same way. We actually do have some access points when I was visiting Washington, D.C. and checking it out. I actually drove around a little bit because we had like a couple small businesses that were using us. Like, nice. I just want to check it out. I was like, it's not the Capitol, it's not right by the Capitol, but it's, in a couple blocks. Sure. We're getting there. That's it, is growth and working through others. So, and we see a lot of opportunities to give, I haven't even really spent time lighting up all the incubators, different offices and all different startups just here in Madison and in Milwaukee, donating this service to them as well and helping them with their headquarters. There's so much opportunity that's out there to grow.
Yeah. I just want to say again, thank you for your time and sharing your story. And thank you for being who you are. You just seem like a really good person and you care about people and you care about the bigger picture of things. So just want to say thank you and best of luck on your vision and moving forward. So Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. We're excited. I've been here a long time. I went to UW-Madison for my engineering degree, and then I went to Marquette for my MBA. So I've been local for decades.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for joining us on the Startup Wisconsin podcast. Want to support the show? Don't forget to subscribe and get updates. If you're feeling generous, you can share, rate, and review our podcast to help others find us. All right, folks, until next time, let's keep moving Wisconsin forward.